Hello, welcome into WLOY, Loyola Radio, streaming online at WLOY.org and Campus TV channel 111.1. You're listening to After the Whistle, Loyola's premier sports talk radio show, airing every Monday and Friday from 3 to 4 on Mondays and 1 to 2 on Fridays. Welcome to another Friday edition of the show. I'm your host today, Jeffrey Bozzi, alongside my co-host, Jimmy Cody. Jimmy, how is your Friday so far?
My Friday so far is pretty good, honestly, Jeff. So thank you for asking. Just had a nice little sandwich from the Green and Gray. So that
Great
was
place.
a good start to the day. We got some intramurals later, so I'm excited for that. And last night was good night. Would you say that you had a good night?
Definitely. Yeah, it was a fun night.
That's
Good to
good.
see everyone
Yep.
out.
So good start to the weekend. The weather's nice. The Orioles game is this weekend, the senior Orioles game. So that's something to look forward to as well. For the Tigers and Orioles, you going?
Yeah. Yes, I will be in attendance.
Yeah. So a lot to be excited for.
Yeah,
It's
the
a
vibes
nice
are high right now.
vibes are high. And you know what the sad part is, it's just that I have a lot of work. Schoolwork
Yeah,
is also
I
in
know.
high demand right now.
That's a big obstacle that we're gonna unfortunately have to overcome.
Yeah.
So
Or maybe we won't.
yeah, I wish the work could get done by itself, but unfortunately that's not how it works. But yeah, you're 100% right. It's gonna be a good weekend. We've already had a good start to the weekend, and you're looking at the sports calendar. There's a lot going on right now, but we're gonna start with the NBA playoffs, and we're in the middle part of the first round, I guess you could say. We had 3 games last night, so that's where we'll start. We had 1 game in the East and 2 in the West. We'll start with the East game. We'll just go in order here. We had the Philadelphia 76ers going up to Brooklyn, game 3 of their first round series against the Brooklyn Nets. And Jimmy, for a while in this game, I'm not sure if you caught some of it or most of it or all of it, but I thought the Nets were in control. And I thought the Sixers kind of stole it from them at the later part of the first half, but the Nets really took control in the second half. And you thought that this was the game that they were going to have to win to get back in the series, obviously being down 2-0. But they unfortunately could not get it done in the end, and they lost the Sixers 102-97. And for the Sixers, if they're going to win like this, I mean, yeah, it's a little concerning that sometimes they go in these stretches where they can't score, but to win ugly 2 games in a row, I mean, I guess that's somewhat of a decent sign that you can win other ways. But for the Nets, though, this is just a deflating loss. You felt like this was the game that they had to win, like I said, and it felt like it was in their control for most of the night, but they unfortunately were not able to get it done. But I want to hear your thoughts, Jimmy. What are your thoughts on not just this game, maybe the series? I mean, what went wrong for the Nets? How did they not get this win last night?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. The answer is offense, right? You can only put up 97 points. That's not going to be enough to win. And honestly, the Sixers didn't have a great offensive night either. They only put up 18 in that third quarter, which you were talking about in the second half, how the momentum kind of switched. And that was very much so true because that was the best quarter that the Nets played, right? Probably of the entire series, I'd say.
Oh, definitely.
And that kind of was the momentum changer at that point in the game. But then the fourth quarter rolled around and the Sixers defense kind of stepped up. It, again, was not a pretty quarter, but they just ultimately just kind of found a way to get the Nets out of an offensive rhythm, and they weren't able to put up points.
Yeah, they put up 15 in the quarter.
Yeah,
That's Brooklyn's fourth quarter.
Yeah,
total.
and you know what, too? The problem is for the Nets is they don't have that star guy to go to, right? Because obviously we know after the big trade with Kyrie and KD's going out in their respective trades, that now the number one option is Mikal Bridges. And with all due respect to Mikal Bridges, he did have 26 points, but he is not enough to just single-handedly beat the Sixers.
Yeah, and they also had another quarter where I think they only put up 19. That was in the second quarter. So it definitely hurts that they don't really have a go-to guy for offense. I mean, Mikal Bridges, yes, he's a great player. He can put up points, like you said, he had 26, but it's not like he's going to be a guy that's going to, I don't know, take you in the fourth quarter and carry you on the back and win. And the Sixers have Joel Embiid in that case to do so. But I want to bring up the officiating. I'm not sure if you saw any of the officiating last night, but there's some very interesting calls made last night. I'll start in the first quarter. I saw Nick Claxton throw down a dunk on Joel Embiid. They both fell to the ground, and Claxton got teed up because he was kind of taunting after the play. But Embiid kicked Claxton, and he received a flagrant 1. And a lot of people thought that he should have received a flagrant 2. And personally, I kind of agree with that. I thought that he should have been ejected. It was kind of just an unnecessary play that he did. But later on, we saw James Harden get a flagrant 2 when he was having the ball, and I forget who was guarding him. I think it was Royce O'Neal, the Nets. And he gave a slight elbow, but it wasn't anything major, and he received a flagrant 2 for that. And then we also saw Nick Claxton get teed up, I believe, later in the game. I'm not sure if it was a T or a flagrant 1, and he was ejected. So there's a lot of ejections last night, a lot of questionable calls, but I think overall the officiating's been okay. And obviously in another series,
wait, in the series or in the NBA as a whole?
in like the series for Sixers Nets, I think it's been all right. Besides last night, like the first 2 games were fine, but I think overall the officiating's been And I was gonna bring up
you got to talk about the Draymond thing. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think Draymond kind of got the raw end of that deal.
I think he did too, and
he's getting stepped on.
Yeah, I mean,
and Sabonis was doing plenty of things other times, right? Like they were just guys who were going at it throughout the game. But Sabonis, of course, nothing happened to him. And then, I mean, we'll talk about it after, but good for the Warriors getting that win. I'm sure with Draymond coming back on the home floor, the energy is going to really rise. I bet if they win that series, if they win that game, they end up winning that series. I'm just going to say that now. But in terms of this game, last night's game between the Sixers and the Nets, yeah, the officiating was horrible. I mean, I just don't understand how the Embiid play, the decision to make it a flagrant 1, and then the Harden play, decision to make it a flagrant 2. And it's just
inconsistent.
I mean, I don't know. Is it because Joel Embiid's a star player? Does he just get different treatment than everyone else?
It could be
that's kind of the case.
It is the case for other players in the league too, like LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and others.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree. I think the Claxton ejection was kind of a makeup call in a way for the Harden ejection, because I completely disagree with the Harden ejection. That did not deserve to be a flagrant 2. Now, if you give him a flagrant 1, like I guess whatever, but flagrant 2 for that, I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's just seems like
funny how it works out.
Not the right. The punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Yeah, it's funny how it worked out, just because Embiid should have been ejected, in my opinion, and Harden should not have been ejected, but it happened to be the other way around. And I guess for Sixers fans, I mean, Embiid's a better player than Harden, but you obviously want both of them out there on the floor because they're both very good together. But the fact that Embiid was out there in the end of the fourth quarter when they were trying to come back and win was huge. And shout out Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey was unbelievable. He made some clutch shots.
In a game that Joel Embiid did not play that great.
No, he was not his usual self.
No, not at all.
But thankfully, Tyrese Maxey stepped up when he had to. He was pretty much the other guy, besides James Harden, too, that played well in that starting lineup. And so did Tobias Harris to a lesser extent. Also, Anthony Melton was good off the bench. But we'll get into the Kings-Warriors ejection / suspension later, because there is some backdrop there. But for Sixers-Nets, yeah, this was definitely the game that the Nets needed. Now, I could see the Nets winning game 4, just because they're going to come out with nothing to lose. I mean, down 3-0, you kind of play a little looser, I think. The pressure's kind of on the Sixers to close it out. But yeah, I think going forward, I think the question is, can the Nets get enough offense?
Yeah, that is the biggest question mark. Obviously, we talked about the lack of stars that they have. And listen, I don't think the defense has been that bad. I mean, giving up 102, doing a pretty good job against Joel Embiid, who's an MVP candidate at this point, right? One of the best players in the league. So anytime you hold them to a number like that, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. So for the defensive side of the floor, just keep doing what you're doing. As for the other side of it, the offense, I mean, they're just going to have a really good offensive game plan. They're going to have to find a way to manipulate a matchup.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's really the only chance that they have, right? Or they just catch fire from 3, right?
Yeah, and it's not like they're not getting help. I mean, Cam Johnson at 17, Claxton at 18, Dinwiddie had 20. I mean, there's other guys chipping in, but the bench has been kind of non-existent. I mean, Joe Harris, we can talk about Joe Harris because he's a sharpshooter, as we all know. He's just been ice cold. And I don't know when it happened or how it happened, because 2 years ago or so, he was an absolute sniper from downtown. And I know he only took 3 shots, but there's just something off. I mean, they could really use his shooting.
Yeah, it's kind of been like something that Joe Harris's downfall has kind of been a problem throughout this Nets downfall, I'd say, just because he was a guy that when you added KD and Kyrie to that equation, it was like, oh, now they have this other guy, Joe Harris. And then he ends up winning the 3-point competition too. So during one of his best seasons. So his stock was way up a couple of years ago. And it's crazy at this point to see a guy who in a playoff game on a team that really doesn't have any stars, he's now getting 4 minutes a game.
Yeah. And I'm confused because, listen, I know the Nets, they were going through this midseason thing where they were trading away their 2 best players, just so uncommon. and they basically have a new starting five minus Nick Claxton, but they still have other guys on the bench who have played at points this year, like Utah Watanabe, Patty Mills, and Seth Curry. I just named those three because they're all really good shooters. I just don't understand why one of them or two of them are not getting minutes. I mean, they can all shoot. Utah Watanabe was leading the NBA in 3-point percentage in the first month or two. I don't understand.
Well, yeah, I really don't understand Seth Curry not getting.
And he played, I think, in game 2.
Yeah. So
I just don't understand it. That's more of a coaching thing. I mean, I don't know
That's Jacques
what Jacques
Vaughn.
Vaughn is thinking.
yeah,
but
I don't really know what goes
he's
on.
got some other philosophy.
Yeah, I don't know what goes
he
on
believes in.
inside of the mind of Jacques Vaughn, but I don't know. I mean, in all honesty, since they made those trades, I mean, Jacques Vaughn as a coach was like respected, but like they weren't winning. It wasn't like they were winning. Yeah, they were doing maybe a decent job, but
I think they were slightly under 500
Yeah.
when he took over. I don't know what the final record was.
no. But since the trade,
Since the trades, he's been on a respectable job. I mean, he's done all right.
I think
For what
was
he's been given,
respectable, yeah.
I mean, he's had to
But is it
deal with a
great?
lot of different
I mean, they gave
players.
him an extension too.
Yeah, so they clearly think that long term he could be a pretty good head coach.
Well, I think it's fair to question his ability. As
I
a coach,
agree.
and
I think
in this
he's not
series, it's
using
being
all
a
the
little
resources
highlighted.
that he has. I agree with you there. Going forward, though, they're just gonna have to come out tomorrow afternoon and just give it all they have.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's go out west. We have the
The
Kings
Warriors, baby. The Warriors.
We had game
Love
3
it.
last night between that series in San Francisco, and everyone was expecting the Warriors to bounce back in game 2, and they did not, but they did bounce back last night. And the story coming into this game, as we mentioned before, was Draymond Green, the Warriors forward, being suspended for this game due to what he did in game 2 when he was involved
Wrongly
in a little
suspended.
tangle with, yes, and I agree. He was in a tangle with Domantas Sabonis. He was trying to get out of the tangle, and then I don't know. I guess the refs and the NBA execs saw it differently, and they handed down the suspension.
Or you could say it like it really is. And Domantas Sabonis stepped on Draymond Green when he was on the ground,
Yeah.
and then their legs, and they got tangled up, and then somehow Draymond, who was on the ground, was at fault because
Yeah.
he got stepped on. That's just my opinion of it. I just think Draymond got really screwed. I'm not gonna lie. But let's get into the series. Obviously, Sacramento's up 2-0 going into last night, Jeff. They're taking it back to the Bay. And I'm going to be honest, there was no way I think that Curry and company were letting the Kings win last night on their home floor, especially with the way that they play at home. We know about their great home record. We know about how bad they are on the road, too. But they're almost like double or triple as good at home.
Yeah, it's crazy the disparity between them on the road and them at home. I mean, they're so much better at home. They just feed off the home crowd. I don't know what it is. I mean, listen, there's good teams every year that have bad road records, but we've never seen a team with a worse road record than the Warriors, I think, in a long time. But they play so much better at home. They're just more fired up. They're more energized. And we saw that last night. I mean, Steph Curry was phenomenal, having 6 threes, 36 points, and got some help as well from Andrew Wiggins, having 20. Klay Thompson had a kind of night. He had 13, but Poole chipped in with 16. And Moses Moody off the bench with 13. But they just made timely shots when they had to. And for the Kings, it's not like their stars played terrible. I mean, Sabonis had 15 and 16. That's okay. Fox had 26. I mean, you can't really ask for much more than that, but they just did not get help from the bench. And also, they were dreadful from downtown. They were 23% from downtown.
Yeah, they were awful from downtown. And when you look at how the Warriors were from downtown,
they both took a ton of threes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, too. The Warriors, it wasn't that the Warriors shot that well from downtown. It's just they shot better from the field. And also, too, their offense is just more consistent throughout the night. Like, they got stuff from their big names, right? Like, Andrew Wiggins had a really nice bounce back game, still put up 20 points, right? Grabbed 7 boards. He was very resourceful. I will say, though, the one guy I thought was a little disappointing last night, I guess Klay Thompson. He took a lot of shots. He really didn't do much. He only finished with 13 points. And I don't know. What do you think about the Warriors, though, going forward? Like, obviously, they played a little bit of a different lineup because they did not have Draymond, but Draymond will be obviously back in there. And I would assume Poole goes back to the bench.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. And I feel like that kind of helps them because I think they played a good game and like defensively, they played a good game. We saw the 3 points for the 3-point shots for the Kings not go in at all. And they didn't even have their best defensive player.
Right. I think going forward with Draymond being back in there for game 4 on Sunday, I think it really helps Klay Thompson actually, because Now you put Jordan Poole on the bench. And I think it's kind of awkward that Poole, Curry, and Thompson all started last night. And that's what I would have done if I was the coach.
I mean, I guess
It's just weird because they're all
best
shooters
players.
and they need offense. But I think Poole off the bench normally with Draymond in the starting lineup is good because Draymond kind of sets the tone and he kind of frees up better shots for Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Also for Jordan Poole,
great.
He kind of runs the offense by himself off the bench. He has the ball in his hands more. And I think when he's in the starting lineup with Curry and Thompson, it kind of takes away from maybe a few of their touches. And last night, I think Klay was the victim. But yeah, they really needed this win. I think going forward in the series, obviously they are going to have to win tomorrow because if they go down 3-1 going back to Sacramento, that's not going to bode well for them, especially considering their road troubles. But I think it's going to come down to, once again, can the Warriors steal one in Sacramento? I know if they go down 3-1, that's bad, but I just think obviously they have to win a game in Sacramento to win the series. I just think that's the question. Like, can they do it? They've been close. Last night was the first time in the series where the game really wasn't close at the end. I mean, the Kings pulled away a little bit in the first two games, more so in the second game, but last night the Warriors kind of came out with urgency. They got to do it again.
I think a lot of how this series finishes up depends on what happens in this next game.
Yeah. I mean, they really need to come out again like they did last night.
If the Warriors take this game, I mean, that's a must win, I think, for Sacramento when they go back. Yeah, it's honestly a must win for both teams, right? Because whoever wins game 5 usually wins the series.
Yeah, but it's a lot different if it's 2-2 or 3-1. But I agree. I think if the Warriors win Sunday, I think the pressure's all on Sacramento in game 5. Listen, there's pressure on the Warriors too to steal one in Sacramento because they have to, but they also can just take care of business at home and then send it to game 7. But yeah, I think the Warriors have pressure in game 4. They really need to get it done. They got to show that they can do what they did last night. I think they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they absolutely can. And I honestly think they will. And like I said before, I think they'll win the series. All right. Can we talk about the Kawhi-less Clippers last night?
Yeah, this is kind of a wild game.
The Norman Powell show.
Yeah, this is a game that went under the radar. It was the late 10:30 tip on NBA TV. It was the Suns and Clippers.
The stinker. The stinker of the playoffs. Yeah, that's what it was.
Facing off in game 3 of their series as the series shifted to LA. And talk about an offensive masterclass from both teams. Both teams scoring in the 120s. And like you said, the storyline coming in was we knew Paul George was out for the series, but Kawhi Leonard, it was reported a few hours before the game that he was going to miss the game due to injury. And obviously for the Clippers, that hurts a lot. I mean, Kawhi Leonard is the best player on their team, probably on both sides of the ball, to be honest with you. And to not have him out there.
He's the best player on the court.
Yeah. I mean, arguably, I would think Durant would be.
Nah, bored man. I mean, the way he's played in the series.
Yeah.
I mean, Durant.
I think Durant's better.
When Kawhi is on Durant, it's not been great for Durant.
Yeah,
and obviously he wasn't there last night, so Durant had a good game. But the real problem in the series for the Clippers has been Devin Booker, and obviously he showed that again. Game 2,
45 points.
Game 2, it was Devin Booker. Game 3, it's Devin Booker. He's the guy they got to figure out how to stop.
Yeah, and Chris Paul once again having only 11 points, but like you said, Devin Booker.
Devin Booker is the guy who's kind of carried this offense. Yeah, when KD is your second leading scorer, putting up 28, yeah, that's a good game. Obviously, you're going to be really satisfied with that. But the problem is Booker with the 45. And honestly, too, Jeff, again, we talk about this with the Suns. They get nothing from their bench. But when you let essentially like Torrey Craig get 16 in combination with Booker getting 45 and Durant getting 28. Like, that's just too many points from the starting lineup. Like, you're just not stopping those guys.
No. And I think Phoenix can get away with that.
And Torrey Craig's a nice 3-point shooter.
Yeah, he's a good 3-and-D guy. He kind of flies under the radar. I think for the bench, I think Phoenix could get away with it in this series. Now, we don't know if Kawhi is playing tomorrow in game 4 or whatever.
I hope he is. I really
hope so. Because going into last night, I actually was going to pick the Clippers. I thought
the Clippers were going to win too. If Kawhi
they were home underdogs. I was thinking
they should have sat. Well. They should have sat him in game 2 if they knew he was hurt. That's really bad mismanagement.
Yeah,
because when you were up 1-0, wouldn't you want him to go back to Los Angeles where he can, I don't know, play both games on your home court, where I would say they're probably a better team?
Yeah, I would think so.
That's just not too much sense. Yeah, that makes too much sense. That's the problem.
But what I was saying about Phoenix's bench, I think they can get away with the lack of bench scoring in this series because I do think they're going to end up winning the series now that they've taken home court back. But I think going forward, though, if they've run into Denver in the second round, you're going to need bench scoring because Denver can score with so many different guys. But anyway, going with this series, talk about the Clippers. I mean, Russell Westbrook at 30, Norman Powell, he's
Heck
at
yeah, he did.
40.
He almost had a triple double, Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, he's been playing well.
Yeah. So I mean,
Really well.
he's not the best shooter, as we know. They still leave him open from three, but at least he hit 3 3-pointers last night. He had 8 rebounds, he has 12 assists, and he puts up the 30 ball, like you said. I thought, honestly, with the exception of Norman Powell in the starting lineup, the only other person who contributed anything was Russell Westbrook. I mean, some of these other guys are horrible.
Yeah, they had two guys off the bench.
Eric Gordon is at what purpose do he and Nick Batum serve out there? Like why not play?
It's like 3-point shooting.
Honestly, I feel like you would be better off like putting Terrence Mann out there to start. Like I know they bring him off the bench and he's been like probably one of their better bench guys for a couple of years now too. He's been really good with his defense.
He's definitely risen up the ranks.
Certainly. But
Bones Highland was pretty good.
Bones Highland was pretty
good. He's a streaky player. If he can score a lot, I mean, that's obviously what he brings to the table. But yeah, not having Kawhi out there is just a killer. I mean, if he's out there, I mean, we don't know if Durant has 28. Maybe Booker doesn't have 45. And then on the other side, he's probably putting up 25 to 30 points.
Here's the thing, though. The guy who would lead the starting lineup wouldn't be any of those two guys that we just absolutely ripped to shreds. It would be Norman Powell. Norman Powell would go to the bench. And you probably wouldn't get that production out of Norman Powell, obviously, if Kawhi plays and he's coming off the bench. But I'll tell you what, you're probably never going to get much from Eric Gordon and Nick Batum. I seriously,
you might get a couple threes, but nothing more than that.
Yeah, I mean, what purpose do they realistically serve out there? I mean, Batum only played 19 minutes too. I mean, I think they're realizing like when they don't have Kawhi, and I know obviously they're down Paul George too. That's the part that makes it the most difficult. Like, can you imagine if they had some of these guys coming off the bench? Like, yeah, Eric Gordon off the bench would be really nice with Norman Powell, Bones Highland, and Mann. Like, that would be a good group of guys to sub in to play with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean,
but the injuries. And that's the thing with the Clippers. I feel like we've always been waiting for them to kind of ascend. When they signed Paul George and Kawhi, it was like, whoa, like this is going to be like a championship team for like to compete with the Warriors, right? And they've just never kind of ascended to that. And I'm still waiting on it, and I see the potential there.
And they've also had awful luck. I mean, when they played the Suns in 2021, Kawhi didn't play, and they still took the Suns to 6 games. And we see here, I mean, they're still down 2-1, and they were right in it last night. They lost by 5.
I know. I just hope for their sake Kawhi plays.
We'll see. They have a quick turnaround. They play tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern, which is 12:30 Pacific. So early afternoon tip-off out there in LA.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Kawhi is out there. But looking at the other series, and a lot of game threes are happening tonight and a couple tomorrow, but I'll just run through these series quickly. I mean, Celtics-Hawks, Celtics up 2-0. They go to Atlanta. I mean, do you think Atlanta can steal one at home and make it interesting for game 4? I mean, what do you think? Because it's been all Boston so far.
Yeah, I think it's going to be all Boston again. I mean, the Hawks just don't really look good. They just do not look like they belong with the Celtics in any really matter so far. But at the same time, too, they are on their home floor. So tonight's going to have to be the night that they show us that they belong.
Yeah, I think for them to win a game, I think it obviously starts with the backcourt. You need Trae Young and DeJounte Murray to probably combine for somewhere around 60. I had to guess.
Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, I think you might need 70.
70. I think they can do 60. No, I don't think DeJounte Murray is like a prolific scorer. He's a good scorer.
Trae Young
can score. He can score 30 to 40, and he's very capable of that. But it's going to take a monumental effort for them to not just win a game against Boston, but to get back in the series. But how about the Cavs-Knicks? This involves your team here with the Knicks. Game 3 in New York tonight, 8:30 tip on ABC. This is a big game. We saw the Knicks steal one in Cleveland game 1, and then Cleveland gave it to him in game 2. What do you think the Knicks have to focus on tonight to get back to playing like they did in game 1?
Well, the offense was horrible in game 2. So that's the first thing. And also the defense was horrible. So I would say we need a lot more of defense from the first game. And we just need to be just more consistent on offense, just kind of like on more fronts, like 3-point shooting. We got to do a better job of that. At the same time, though, I feel like the one thing that we have going for us is that we stole a game in Cleveland. I didn't really think that we would steal a game. I knew we had the potential to, right? Like I knew realistically the Cavs aren't that much better than the Knicks, but they have to win this game tonight. Realistically, if they're going to win the series, they probably need to win both these games in New York and make this thing 3-1 going to Cleveland for the first game or for the fifth game. But then hopefully they can bring it back to New York if they were ultimately to lose that one. But even then, that would be a very far path. It starts with a win tonight.
Yeah, I think they can. I think that crowd's going to be absolutely
Oh, it's
rocking.
going to be insane.
Yeah. And Stephen A, I mean, you can say what you want about him because he's a Knicks fan, but he said the Cavs have quote unquote no chance to win tonight. So we'll see if that comes true. But
That's
we
scary.
also have Nuggets Timberwolves game 3 in Minnesota tonight. And I know that we haven't really talked about this series much, but I think it is worth bringing up that Minnesota did make it a little interesting in game 2. They were actually winning kind of late in the game, but Denver ultimately found a way. But I mean, do you think Minnesota gets one of these 2 at home tonight or Sunday? Because I think they can. I think they showed some
Is
signs.
Jokic definitely playing?
I think they said that he was probable, so I guess that he would play based on probable.
Yeah, because I know he was injured. But listen, if Jokic plays, I think more than likely it's a game Denver should win. It's going to be really tough on Minnesota's home floor. I would assume this is probably going to be one of the better games that the Timberwolves can play. But if Jokic does not play, I could definitely see Minnesota having it. Like they should realistically, I think they should win a game here.
Yeah.
They should win game 3 on their home floor if Jokic is not playing. And that's honestly how I feel. Because I think Jokic is that good and he's that crucial to Denver's success in the first place. Without him, they're obviously not the same team. And also for the sake of like just who would replace him, like look at what the Timberwolves have down low, whereas what's replacing for him?
Yeah, it's probably going to be Zeke Nnaji or
Yeah.
DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, it's not
or
going to
Thomas Bryant.
It's not going to be something good. And whereas with Timberwolves, who do they have down low? Well, they got Rudy Gobert, who, as much as people do like to, and for good reason, do like to kind of not like the way that Rudy Gobert plays. He is still a solid defender, and he would
he's a great defender.
He's a big body, he's a good rebounder, and he's a good defender. Now he lacks some skill on offense. That's kind of the best way to say it. But at the same time, if he's going up against any of those 3 names that you just mentioned as a possible Jokic replacement, if Jokic did not play, then I would feel pretty confidently in the Timberwolves. And even if Jokic does play, it's certainly going to be a tough battle. And let's not forget that they also have Karl-Anthony Towns.
Yeah, and
Anthony Edwards.
For what you want to say about Towns, he's great. He actually is a good compliment to Gobert because he can stretch the floor. Gobert can't stretch the floor, but Towns can stretch the floor. So it kind of creates a unique challenge for Denver on defense. But I do think that is going to be an interesting game tonight. And then we have 2 game 3s tomorrow. We have the Bucks and the Heat in the East. That game 3 will be in Miami. Do you think Miami can still make this interesting? Because I know they got kind of shattered in game 2. They made it interesting at the end, but it was all Milwaukee. And now with Giannis kind of lurking to come back.
Is he definitely coming back?
We'll see if he does. It's not official yet. Like I know he missed game 2, but we're not sure. Like
it might not matter with the way that game 2 went.
Like, do you think it matters if he comes back or not?
This series? Oh, I think it depends a lot on if they win this game without him. I could see him taking not only game 3 off, but also game 4 off. If they lose, then I think that he's probably back in game 4 for sure.
Yeah.
Just because it would be 2-2. And that would be a really tough place for the Bucks to be. Oh, yeah, no. That they would have to make it 2-2. They would be realistically down 2-1, actually.
Right. And the Heat have home court because they did steal game 1 up in Milwaukee.
Exactly. So that would be the predicament for the Bucks. So I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play today, but I could definitely see him.
Yeah. And then the final game 3 tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, we have the Grizzlies going out to LA to take on the Lakers. What a day for LA. They got the Suns Clippers in the day, Grizzlies Lakers at night, but the Lakers will definitely look to bounce back after taking a tough loss on Wednesday in Memphis. They just didn't look competitive from the start. And we've seen Dylan Brooks obviously make some headlines off the court, kind of drawing at the Lakers and drawing at LeBron James. So we'll see what LeBron and AD have in store. But do you think the Lakers bounce back? You think they regain the series lead?
I like the Lakers in this game. I think the Lakers, honestly, I think at home they're going to be even tougher than they were on the road. The fact that they stole one in Memphis the first game I mean, that was good for them. Like that was a really good way to start the series. And if they can take this one here and then hopefully get game 4 for their sake, I mean, that would be a great position to be in 2-1.
Yeah,
Or
and
3-1.
3-1. But we'll have to see. The big storyline here is on the Memphis side. We do not know what Ja Morant's status is. He did not play in game 2.
And that's the problem.
We haven't really heard anything, so I don't know if that's good news or bad news. I think that's probably more on the bad news side.
I would definitely think that that's the bad news side. But also at the same time, too, they could not be saying anything because they don't want to make it seem like he's playing and catch the Lakers in some surprise. But I'm sure the Lakers would kind of have an idea, right? Because he would be at their court more than likely practicing.
Yeah, but that series is definitely going to be a dandy. I mean, there's a few series out here that I still think are going to go pretty far. But with all these injuries going on, it kind of throws a wrinkle into some of these series. But so far, I think we've been entertained to a lot of good action out there on the court. So I think we're going to take a quick break here on After the Whistle, but we'll come back. We have a guest coming on. We'll get into some NFL news that broke a little while ago, and we'll also get into some NHL playoff talk. So stay with us. We will be right back. Hello, welcome back to WLOY, Loyola Radio, streaming online at WLOY.org and Campus TV channel 111.1. You're listening to After the Whistle with Jeffrey Bazzi and Jimmy Cody. And Jimmy, before we get into some other NFL news and NHL playoff talk, we have some college lacrosse to talk about. And I want to give a quick shout out to the Coils who are listening. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, shout out to them.
Big fans of the show.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you guys taking some time to listen to the show. So thank you for tuning in. And we're going to grant your wish and we're going to talk about some lacrosse. And we'll start here with the Greyhounds. I know that you guys, obviously, with Billy being on the team, are huge, big Red fans. And so are we. But let's talk about the Greyhounds first. The men had a rough little patch here, Jimmy.
Yeah,
and
certainly.
we do have a chance to bounce back tomorrow. We play at home against Colgate, and we're coming off a quick turnaround where we played Tuesday night at home against Georgetown. And
we got steamrolled.
To say it went rough, I think might be kind of an understatement. And I hate to put it that way, but that's just the truth.
They were a good team. We have went against other top 10 teams. We've had wins, but we've also had massacres like we did against Duke. And unfortunately, this was one of those massacres.
Yeah. And just from the start, we just got down to a huge deficit. I believe it was 15-3 at half, if I have that right. I might fact check that myself. But yeah, it's just recently, I feel like whatever can go wrong is going wrong. And we've had some key games that we've had to win. I mean, we lost that home game against Navy 2 weeks ago. That was a killer loss. Then we went up to Boston University, lost a tough one there. And we've been competitive in some of these losses, but to lose 16-9 is bad. 23-7 is bad. But the 10, like 11-10 loss to Navy, that's just a killer.
Not competitive. Doesn't matter because that was a game we should have won.
Yeah, it's all about the wins and losses at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
I just wish that we could get back to how we played early in the year with sound defense and then the offense kind of playing off of that.
Yeah, and
we just lost.
I think the start has been defense. Now we're in this predicament in our goalie situation where we're switching out goalies again. I mean, this feels like last year all over again. I'm getting like, I don't know, what's the word? Deja vu.
Deja vu.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting right now.
And I thought we
were past
have some stability with Luke Stout, and he's been great up until a few games.
But I don't think it's all on him. It's a team effort.
It's not.
It's a team game.
It's all about the team.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm trying to add some silver lining and some promise to this. There are 2 conference games left. Let's see if they can get some momentum on Saturday, winning at home, and then they go to Lehigh, so that'll be a tough game, but they're definitely another team that's beatable. So I think going into the Patriot League tournament, if you can win 2 conference games and kind of right the ship a little bit and gain some confidence, I mean, who knows? Listen, I know Army is the class of our conference, and
Army or us, so we thought.
Yeah. And Army has kind of risen up as a top team. And speaking of Cornell, they did play Army recently, had a nice gritty win up there at West Point. But yeah, I think going forward, the team to beat is Army. But I feel like after that, it's kind of a free-for-all. It's kind of open. I mean, BU and Navy and Loyola, and I might be forgetting another team that's in the mix. But I feel like all those teams can definitely make a run because it's so important because the winner of the Patriot League tournament wins automatic trip to the NCAA tournament.
which is what we want, which we thought we were going to be at.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say until what, 2 weeks ago?
Right. And I thought maybe if we could stack up some wins and make a deep run in the Patriot League tournament, maybe we could get an at large. But obviously, all of that is out the window now.
Yeah,
So,
because of our recent losses.
yeah, I believe we're now at 6-6. We did drop out of the top 20 rankings.
To
We
be
were at
expected.
13 2 weeks ago. We dropped down to 20, and now we're out of the rankings. But I'll talk quickly about Cornell just because of the listeners here on the show. Obviously, they would love to hear that. They have a tricky game this week. They go up to Brown. They'll take on Brown on Saturday.
We should mention Jeffrey's brother plays for lacrosse. Plays lacrosse for Cornell. That's really the important thing here. How is Michael? Obviously,
doing well.
Yeah, take us through a season really quick.
He's had a pretty good year up until his injury, which was against Dartmouth back on April 1st. But before that, he was playing pretty well as a D midi. He had his first college goal on March 26th against Penn. He actually added a second goal in that game, but he was gelling pretty nicely. I thought he was causing some turnovers, getting some ground balls. I was very pleased at his season up until the injury. And then unfortunately he suffered the injury against Dartmouth back on April 1st and he had thumb surgery, but he's doing better now. I talked to him a couple of days ago and he seems like he's on a good path. He should be back hopefully for the start of the Ivy League tournament, which starts, I believe, in 2 weeks, if I have that right.
All right. Well, Michael's got a lot on his plate and so did Cornell. So hopefully they can keep their strong season going, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're top 10 team, right?
Yeah, they're at number 6 right now in the inside lacrosse poll, sitting at 9-2. They had a tough loss up at Harvard recently, which I was in attendance for. And those games happen. I know you're not going to have it every single day. It was just kind of one of those weird losses, but they did bounce back very nicely. They beat Marquette off a quick turnaround. They played it on a Tuesday right after. They beat them at home. And then, like I said, they went up to Army last Saturday and pulled out a tight 1-goal win there. And that was huge because Army was another team that was in the top 10 and they still are in the top 10. So getting those 2 bounce back wins is huge. And I guess going forward, just trying to position themselves in the Ivy League tournament, trying to get that top seed is obviously the number 1 goal. And then I think for the team itself, I mean, knowing the ins and outs of the team, I think defensively, they just got to continue to play as a unit. And Chase Serlin, the goalie's a rock back there. He's got to continue to play like he has been. He's been pretty solid. And then offensively, obviously, Billy Coyle is a huge claw. He's had a great season. So shout out to Billy Coyle. I know you guys might like that, but I think he and CJ Kurse and the rest of the offense, if everyone can just chip in and move the ball around, I think they can go really far. And we saw that last year when they got to the title. So I don't see why they couldn't get back there, but obviously there'll be a tough road with some other teams up there like Notre Dame, Duke, Maryland, UVA, and others. So I think for the Big Red, they're in a good spot. They just continue to kind of get more chemistry going and get some confidence. So
yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, so glad we were able to touch on some lacrosse there, and we'll definitely be talking about that more as the postseason play starts to ramp up. But let's shift our focus over to the NFL real quick. We have a gambling story that broke in the news this morning, and I believe, do we have Eddie Stankovic joining us?
Yeah, this should be him. Ed, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How we doing, guys?
Good.
Yeah,
All right.
doing
So obviously the NFL gambling story is announced today that Jameson Williams, he's the biggest name for sure, and some other Lions players, and then one guy from the Commanders as well, were all suspended for a gambling violation. Just want to hear your thoughts. I don't know if you know the specifics of the story, but basically, in the case of the Lions players, they were gambling on non-NFL games. But they were placing the bets, I guess, at team-related facilities, which is like the practice facility, the stadium, the team hotel, the plane. So, I mean, those I feel like there's a big difference between placing a bet at the stadium and placing it at your team hotel, but that's just me.
I'm first off mad because Jameson Williams is on my dynasty fantasy football team. That's the only reason I really care about the story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would care too.
Yeah.
He just kind of missed one entire year, so it kind of sucks for him.
He's looking like he could be a major draft bust right now.
As of right now, absolutely. Just simply because he hasn't played.
No, he hasn't played it. I think he played a few snaps and stuff. The Lions really seemed like they had no interest in getting him snaps at the end of the year last year.
No, he certainly didn't. And it's funny because when they were talking about him, some of the executives from the Lions were talking about him during the drafts, not interviews, but they have those press conferences, all the GMs.
Yeah.
And they asked him about it, and they were saying how he's got to hold up his end of, the contract, and he's the one who's really got to deliver for them. And this was before we knew this, but I wonder if they kind of knew about this a while ago, and it was just like another sign. Like, I do find it weird that he did not play snaps last year at all. Like, he was somebody who I expected to kind of be like a big part of their offense. And really, besides Amon-Ra St. Brown, they don't have like any star receivers.
Yeah, it's weird. He must have been like, this must not be like the first thing he's done like wrong in the locker room, possibly too. Who knows? Yeah, I didn't really know the other guys that were involved, but it's unfortunate. Jameson was an amazing player in college. He was really fun to watch that year when he was at Alabama.
Yeah, he was a really good player at Alabama.
Yeah.
All right, so Jeff, anything you want to add on this gambling story?
It's just very interesting because it reminds me, obviously, of what Calvin Ridley did last season, and unfortunately, that cost him a season. And I know that Jameson Williams and I believe another player are only being suspended 6 games, but I think some of them are being suspended for the year, like you said, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just so unfortunate because I know that these players, they should have some freedom, but at the same time, I don't know, gambling on the property of the team. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just not smart. I mean, you got to know the rules at the end of the day. You are
Make more
professional.
sound decisions.
Yeah, you got to make a better decisions. All right, Ed. So I know you're a Rangers fan. We haven't really talked much NHL playoffs here, but the Rangers are sitting in a pretty good spot right now against the Devils. They are up 2-0 in the series. Kind of take us your thoughts as a Ranger fan about the series so far, and then also about what you want to see going forward.
Yeah, well, so I wasn't too nervous coming into. I was nervous from the fact that it's like a big rivalry, Rangers Devils, but like from the two teams, I wasn't that nervous. I know the Rangers didn't beat the Devils in regulation during the regular season. 2 of the games were before we made trades. We had the Rangers were a much different team at the beginning of the year before they got Kane, Tarasenko, Mikola, and Tyler Mott back. But yeah. We have the way more experienced team. We have 4 guys on the team now or 3 guys, Kane, Tarasenko, and Barclay Goodrow, who have all won Stanley Cups. The Devils are an extremely young team right now, and experience is really everything in hockey from what I know and what I've seen. So we're definitely a more experienced team. We have to be way more physical the first 2 games. So as long as we keep doing everything right, we should probably win the series. I think the Devils will probably steal a game at the Garden though.
Yeah, I mean, they were so close all season, right? Like the Devils had that great start. The Rangers were never able to quite catch them, though. I mean, people have considered the Rangers to be like, I guess, a championship contender is the best way to describe it because of their top 6. And do you still have that expectation?
For bust this year.
You said it's championship or bust?
Definitely, yeah, because they're not. This is the best roster they're going to have for a while, because they're not going to be able to pay everyone. Like they'll maybe Kane will come back because I know he likes playing for the Rangers. Always wants to play for the Rangers, but like I can't see Tarasenko coming back. Like Lafreniere and Kakko, we're gonna have to get offer sheets soon, so it's gonna be tough.
I will say though, I agree with
salary cap. You forget
everything
about
that Eddie said about paying them in the long run, because that will be an issue, and it happens to a lot of good teams where you kind of have to pay all of your good players, and you might have to sacrifice 1 or 2 leaving, but. Overall, watching the playoffs, and I'm not just saying this to say this because we're talking about the Rangers, I think they've looked like the best team in the playoffs so far. And I know there's other teams in the playoffs that are better record-wise, but I think they've looked like the best team. I mean, they've won 5-1 in both their games, and Shesterkin's just a rocket net. He's just so good down there. There's just not many pucks that are going to get by him. And then you mentioned all those guys that you're going to have to pay. All of them can score. And I think having different scoring options is huge in the playoffs. And I think if the Rangers are going to make a big run, I think they're going to have to get help from everyone, because I think they can lean on certain guys, but I think if all of them are clicking at once, I mean, that's just dangerous.
I mean, yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody agrees with that, Jeff. Absolutely. Ed, what do you think about the rest of the Eastern Conference? And Jeff, I'll open this up to you as well, because you certainly know a lot more hockey than I do. But I mean, what are your thoughts about the other series? I mean, Boston is going up against Florida. I mean, shaky game the other day for Boston, right? Especially after this great regular season. They come out in the playoffs. And Ed, I know something that you've said recently, I've heard you say this, is how playoff hockey is just so much different. And I know, Jeffrey, you've stated that as well. I mean, listen, for the Bruins to go down like that against the Panthers at home, nonetheless, that's pretty shocking. And then Tampa Bay and Toronto, is Toronto going to lose again? I mean, it's kind of iffy, right?
I don't know. I actually said coming into the series that I would be like shocked if Toronto lost the series. Surprisingly, that I'm usually the one that thinks they're always going to lose first round. But the Lightning came out and killed them the first game. Toronto beat them yesterday. But yeah, if there was to go into my head and I had to make a bet, it would probably I'd probably say they're going to lose again somehow.
I mean, yeah, it just seems like luck is not on their side. And then Jeff, your thoughts?
Well, I was actually looking at a different series. That Tampa Bay Toronto series, I think, is going to be very back and forth because both teams are really good. And Toronto, you can say you want about them not having playoff success recently. That's obviously very fair and valid, but they've been a better team than Tampa Bay all year. And I think last night they showed it. They came out and they responded from that ugly game one loss and they hammered them last night. And I think going forward, I know they're going to have to steal one down in Tampa, hopefully tomorrow for their sake, but I still think they can easily win this series because I think they do have. I honestly think they have a slightly better roster, and I know that might be crazy to say, but I just think Tampa Bay kind of lost a little bit of a step this year.
No, they definitely
They were a good team, but they're not like great. I mean, they're not like the teams in the past when they won back-to-back cups.
No, not at all. They lost a lot of players.
Yeah, definitely. The series I was going to bring up, and I think this is going to be a very interesting series. The Stars and Wild series has been awesome so far. We've had two crazy games. I mean, I'll start Monday night. Dallas is pretty much in control, and then Minnesota ties it late. They steal it in overtime, and then Wednesday night, Dallas just hammers them 7-3. What's up with these like 7-goal games? Like,
yeah, it's crazy. I don't really see that.
I think that series is so even. I think that's going to flip flop. I think that's going to go 7. I think those teams are very evenly matched, and I'm not saying that those teams are going to be in it in the long run. I think they could, though. I think Dallas has been a very good team all year, and Minnesota's they're right there, but they're kind of below them. And you still have other teams like Colorado and Vegas who are going to be in the mix, you would think, but we'll see.
And don't forget about the Kraken, Jeff.
Yeah, the Kraken, they surprised a little bit.
Yeah.
They honestly, they could be up 2-0 right now. They were up 2-0 in game 2 last night, and they ultimately fell and lost the lead and lost the game. But we've seen a lot of these series be 1-1 so far. And I think that just shows you that the NHL, it's kind of unpredictable. I mean, you're going to have your contenders, but every year there's always just shockers that screw up the bracket.
Yeah. And then also, you didn't even mention this star-studded team, but the Oilers with, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Pretty good guys.
Yeah.
Pretty good player, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
I
bad.
think they're going to come out of the West, honestly, this year. I think this is their year.
You think the Oilers come out of the West?
That's a good pick.
Yeah, I might regret that prediction very much so in a few days, but yeah, I think so.
I mean, listen, they surely have
It's
the
so
talent.
open. The West is so open this year. There's no one that's like that good.
Yeah, I don't think Colorado is nearly as dominant as they were last year.
I mean, Colorado, you could say they're lucky to be 1-1. They could easily be down 0-2 to the Kraken.
Yeah, I don't think Colorado's.
Yeah, there's a lot of decent teams in the West. Like Colorado's obviously the defending champs. They've been pretty good, but they also kind of had a rough patch as the season started. Dallas and Minnesota, they're all right. Winnipeg's okay. Yeah, the West is definitely, I think, more open than the East.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that way. Ed, any thoughts on the West being more open than the East?
Yeah, all the teams in the West, I don't think from top to bottom, all of them are pretty even. There's no series that's that lopsided in my opinion. So yeah, I think it's very open. That's why I think this is probably McDavid's and Draisaitl's best chance.
It's a good way of thinking about it. I mean, if it is so wide open, why not go with the best players?
Exactly. Yeah, that was my thought process. Yeah.
All right, so I want to ask you guys both something because I don't know if we're going to get a chance to speak to you, Eddie, before this takes place. The NFL draft is next Thursday, and you guys, as Eagles fans, have something very rare going on. You were in the Super Bowl last year. This is not a comment about the Super Bowl. I'm just acknowledging that you were in it.
Yeah.
And you also hold a top 10 pick in thanks to the New Orleans Saints, who, I don't know, what did you guys give up? Like a bag of chips or something, and they just gave you a first round pick? Is that
I guess so.
Is that essentially what happened? What trade was this from?
They gave us an extra second and an extra first. It was ridiculous.
Wait, for which trade? Which trade was this from?
After they traded up for Olave twice, we traded from we traded back from 11 to 14.
And they gave you 2 firsts?
Was it from the Gardner Johnson trade?
No, that wasn't a first.
No.
And then we got one this year, and then we got theirs this year.
Wow. So that's just I guess, man, hey, I guess if Olave's one of the best NFL receivers ever, then I guess that trade will be worth it in the long run. But in the short run, it's definitely a crazy move for a guy they probably could have gotten anyway.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, point is you guys have the top 10 pick, and I want to hear, where do you guys think that you're going? Like, what is your thought process behind that? Because it is kind of an interesting scenario. You have your own pick as well, which is later in the draft. Do you think you just try and recoup more draft capital and move back? Is there a player that you guys want? Is it the guy that ultimately I don't think goes in the first round, but they're saying he might, and that might be Bijan Robinson, just because you guys don't have a running back like, I mean, you do have a running back. It would be Gainwell, but you don't have like an elite caliber running back, I guess to say. Jeff, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on it?
So you mentioned Bijan Robinson. He's kind of been the guy that I think has been linked to the Eagles in a way. I feel like every time I look at a mock
But a
draft,
running back in the first round?
yeah, I don't know. See,
He's definitely gonna be a first round pick.
he's
Bijan
definitely
Robinson.
going to fill a need because you could argue that we could use another running back just because of losing Miles Sanders, losing a starter hurts, and
But you
Bijan,
have a great O line. You don't think you could just stick anybody back there and be fine?
I think maybe, but I do think that some runners are better than others. I know that's very cliche, but I could see us going offensive line at number 10. That would be probably my second thing that I would do if they decide not to go with Robinson. I think that one dude from Northwestern could be in there.
Skoronski.
I think he could be in the mix. I think the line is great, obviously, as we know, but people are getting older, like Kelsey and Johnson. And I think eventually we're going to have to plug in some holes. And I think we have to get younger. And we have gotten younger on the left side with Mailata and Dickerson, but we could get younger on the right side a little bit. So I think Skoronski would be my other choice. But I could see us taking Robinson or Skoronski.
All right. And then, Ed, your thoughts on the Eagles' top 10 pick?
I don't want it to be Bijan Robinson. I don't think it's worth taking a run back there. I think there's a very good chance it is, though. I heard he impressed Eagles highly at the interview. I know that means a lot to them. Also, the Eagles, or Howie Roseman specifically, doesn't really draft, or in recent years, hasn't drafted specifically for need. He's drafted more just like best player available. So I really don't have a prediction of like what position we would take, because it's really, I just think we'll take who he thinks is the best person available, not really like, oh, we need a safety, let's pick a safety. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I can definitely understand his thinking process on that. And also, I'm going to be honest, there's no safeties that rank that high in the top 10.
Here's a random.
Oh, okay. Oh, but no, it's still a need that you guys have. I mean, the best one is probably the guy from Alabama, Branch, I think his name is. And he's probably the best one. And I think he's in low first round pick, like low as in like back half. But he's a good player, but he might be available with possibly your second pick. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Positions like safety and center are positions that I like taking in the middle round more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the NFL draft is not built on what you do in the first round. It's built on what you do in all the other rounds and where you can find guys who separate themselves as, just potential prospects with potential to guys that can actually contribute to your team in the long run. I mean, think about how many guys are found out of nowhere. Like just last year, the starting running back for the Chiefs was a 7th round pick from Rutgers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all you need to hear right there.
Exactly.
Well, I was going to ask you actually, and this kind of leads into my question. The Broncos don't have a pick, I think, until the 3rd round. Is that right?
Jeff, thank you for
What do you think? I didn't mean it like that, but what do you think you guys?
Well, it's just tough seeing Seattle up there at 5 because they also made the playoffs. They kind of had that dream scenario, like you guys.
But what do you think you guys are going to do? Because I think you back-to-back picks.
They
looked
are
it up, but I wasn't sure.
They are back-to-back.
Correct. I mean, if you keep both or one or the other, I mean, what do you think you need? It kind of depends on who's available because it's not until the day 2.
I think the 2 biggest needs right now are, I would like to add one more defensive back, either like probably a strong safety or a second corner. So those would probably be the biggest wish list. News just broke that Javonte may actually not be ready for the beginning of the season. We did sign Samaje Perine from the Bengals, which I think is a good pickup as running back to Javonte, of course. But there's rumor that there might not be a Javonte until mid half of the season now. So that's not looking great. Especially because we were expecting him to be back. They made an announcement he was going to be back. So that's really a tough look. So possibly running back in the later rounds, just because I don't really know what else is out there. I think O-line though needs to be like the main focus. Like we need to keep building up the O-line because this thing goes one of two ways. One, Russ needs to be protected because he just simply needs to be protected. Or number two, we need to get a really good O-line out there in the case that Russ stinks so that we can run the ball a lot and be as effective as possible when we are passing the ball. Right? Like either way, they have to build up the O-line. The defense is already solid. I think the O-line is just the most important thing.
No,
right
that's a
now.
good way to look at it. You got to start up front. I think the O-line is a great place to start.
And I trust Sean Payton too. Like I know this is gonna sound so cliche, and realistically, he hasn't done anything for the team to make me think that I should believe him. But I just, based off his track record, I just have so much more confidence going into the draft than I kind of did last year. I mean, especially you saw some of the decisions that we made. It was not great at all last offseason.
Right.
Ed, anything you want to add there on that Broncos spiel?
Nothing on the Broncos show. Just one quick thing to add though. If Matt Patricia is doing anything for the Eagles other than handing out towels and like making the team mac and cheese, there's gonna be problems.
Yeah, he's a senior defensive assistant, which is kind of crazy when you consider the fact that your star corner hates the guy.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, how is that? How is it?
Slay hates him.
I thought Slay hated him.
I
Yeah.
think they had a bad relationship.
Slay likes him.
No.
Oh,
He's
so
the
I'm wrong. Oh my gosh, why is this guy on the team?
he
It's the
literally
opposite.
he's the reason that Slay left.
Oh my, I didn't know that. Oh my lord.
Yeah, no. Yeah, he's part of I think he's 100% the reason.
I'm trying to make a good thing out of this. At least he's not the DC. Could you imagine if he was the
Oh,
DC?
yeah.
He was the DC.
Not be going near the DC.
Would you rather have Gannon or Patricia?
Trisha. No one ever over Gannon. Everyone over Gannon, I mean.
All right.
I don't know. I think
Jeff,
Gannon-
yeah, I was gonna say, who would you rather have?
I mean,
I would take Gannon.
I think I would take Gannon too. I think they're both subpar at being a DC, as we've both seen. But
Well, Patricia really struggled without Belichick, to say the least, and he was certainly is not a good offensive coach. I can tell you his third act from defensive coordinator to tool on the Lions to
Bill Belichick needs to be checked for Alzheimer's for naming him an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that actually is one
I
of
don't
the
know what that was about.
yeah, that was actually one of the worst moves ever. Also too, I actually don't know if you guys saw this, but Bill O'Brien came out, and I think this is weird just because he's the coach of the Patriots now. He's not even in college anymore, and he said this. He said Bryce Young is the second smartest player he's ever coached to Tom Brady.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's actually. I feel like that's
is-
actually insane to say.
I mean, yeah, that means something. I love Bryce Young. I think he's gonna be a star. Like honestly, if as long as like what teams are gonna have to do is they're gonna have to like build an O line that isn't like too tall. Like that sounds kind of silly, but like you do have to design your O line so you can see over it. Like he is 5'10". That does have to be addressed. But I think he's gonna be a great player, honestly.
I don't even think it's necessarily that much about the height. I think the height thing is overrated. I think you need to have a quality O-line because let's look at the difference between like Russ when he was in Seattle and they had a great team around him. It was so easy to be successful with a shorter quarterback. Drew Brees in New Orleans, easy to be successful. But yeah, when you got Kyler running for his life out there because they got no O-line in front of him. Yeah, of course. I mean, I agree. They obviously need to work on the O-line for any quarterback's sake. So I definitely agree with your point there. But I mean, the shorter thing, you think that much of it is really comes into play?
No, I don't think it's. No. I don't see. I think some people make too big of a deal about it, and I think some people like don't think about it at all.
That's true. I guess it's somewhere in the middle. It's just
Yeah,
another
somewhere
set
in
of
the middle,
circumstances. Yeah.
Like, I don't think it should be ignored, but I don't think it's like. And I wouldn't not draft him because of it. I would still pick him first overall.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Height would
Yeah.
never scare me as a reason to be off Bryce Young at all. I think honestly the Panthers are making a good move moving up for him. All right, Ed. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you guys. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, you have anything else to add, Jimmy, before we log off here?
Let's see if there's any hot takes. No, nothing I could say for the weekend. No, I'll wait.
I guess we'll see how this weekend.
I'll give you
unfolds.
some draft predictions on Monday, and then we can come back on Friday and laugh at them.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking more about the draft next week as we preview it, and then we'll react to round one. So that'll be very exciting. But yeah, that's all I have as well. So thank you as always for listening to the show. We'll be back on Monday previewing the NFL draft and also talking about some NFL news as well in the NBA playoffs. So thank you for listening and have a great weekend.